And see, it's actually showing me, oh, somebody succeeded in transferring files. Yeah. It's actually showing me these files. So it's actually showing me this, and I could actually, if I make this smaller, okay. There we go. What I could actually do is I could take a file from here, and I could drag it. Yeah, I could drag it onto my desktop, and it would actually transfer the file from here to there. So FTP is actually built into a lot of web browsers. So it's basically saying, hey, I don't really want to render this page. I don't want you to render this page. I want you to give me a way of transferring a file from the server to my desktop. The problem is that these are not full FTP clients, so they generally don't let you upload stuff that way, etc. So that's why I ask people to download FileZilla. So what FileZilla or any other FTP client is a program that's designed to transfer a file from one computer to another computer, but not for the purpose of rendering it, only for the purposes of actually transferring. I'm going to disconnect from that. I may have to actually do some web browsing. Alright. So, since I'm on the topic of the structure of a URL, let me actually spend a little more time explaining that. So this here, as I said, is called the service. On the web, the service is always HTTP. Generally, the subdomain is www, although you may have noticed on the web that there are a lot of news sites, especially among kind of the hip crowd. The hip crowd really considers this to be kind of superfluous and really kind of annoying. So, sites like Flickr and so forth, they never put that there. It's just without that portion. And the reason is that it turns out that it doesn't actually convey any additional information. So subdomains these days are mostly used when you're actually trying to express some additional information. So, when people have my.bank.something, what they're trying to express is that's the page where you're going to find your information. But it really is sort of like a first name, last name system. So when you go to my.something, you may be going, your request may get routed to a completely different machine than if you just go to the main site.
I never type the www, and I just try to just see what would happen with Flickr, and it goes to www.flickr.
Yeah. Well, what happens is that behind the scenes, a bunch of different things happen where inside of DNS, inside of this telephone book, what they've done is they have two entries. They have an entry for Flickr.com, and they have an entry for www.flickr.com, and those entries point to the same IP address. Then, after that happens, in a URL, you usually have more information, and that information is known as the path. So in the case that we just did, we had training, and then we had hello world. So that portion here is known as the path. And then sometimes after the path, you have even more stuff. It starts with a question mark. And so that could be something like, I'll just put something like lang equal English. And those things back here are known as parameters. And what your browser does is it takes all of that information, that path information, and the parameter information, and it includes it in the request. So when I said request includes the client IP address, the browser type, the referrer, it also includes the path, and it also includes the parameters. Why is that important? Well, it's important because On the web, in the proper web design, each unique resource should have a unique URL. So if you look at the design of DailyLit, for instance, every book has a URL where it says dailylit.com/books/ and then the title of the book in the URL. And when it makes that request to the server does a bunch of things. It looks up a bunch of stuff in the database, etc. But every book has its own unique URL. And it's important in web design for a number of different reasons. It's what allows for easy linking. And so you never want to move content around. Once you've given it a URL, you don't want to move it around, because if you move it around, you break all the inbound links. The other reason it's important is because Google pays a lot of attention to what the words are in the URL. So if you want to have good SEO, meaning if you want to come up high in search results, you need to structure your URLs so that they are nicely readable and so that Google can discover a lot of information. That's why a DailyLit URL says books in it, so Google infers, oh, that page is likely to be about books. And then it says, Midsummer Night's Dream, so it's likely to be the book Midsummer Night's Dream. Google also pays attention to what's inside of your HTML. So, for instance, Google assumes that stuff you put inside of an H1 tag is important. So you're actually supposed to only have 1 or 2 H1 tags per page, and that's where you want to have the important stuff. It also looks at the title tag. It says, well, whatever you are going to let the user see in the title of the browser or the tab, that's also likely to be important. So those are all things that Google looks at to determine what it thinks about your pages. So URL, title, H1 tag are all important ways to make your pages rank high inside of Google.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
So, say you're on WordPress and you're doing a blog post, it automatically saves it with its own title. Like, I don't seem to have a choice with that.
That's right. And actually, WordPress and all modern blogging platforms do a very good job at creating, from your title, from your post title, automatically creating a nice looking title here. Okay? And so if you write a blog post saying, then it'll take that and turn that into this portion of your post. Now, if you've already had a post with exactly the same title, it'll append like number 2 to it, so that, because otherwise, if it gave it exactly the same URL, well, everything on the web has only one URL, so it would only be able to serve up one of your 2 posts.
And so let's say you were started out on one platform and then you moved to another one, would it know how to do all that?
So, if you ever think that you're going to move your content, it's very important that you control your domain, right? So if you have your content at WordPress.org with the WordPress.org in the URL, and you ever want to move away from WordPress, you're kind of tough out of luck. Because all the URLs in the world, everybody is linked to you, has linked to you at WordPress.org. So what you want to do instead is you want to use your own domain, and you want to use something called domain mapping, which I think WordPress.org does, and you need to pay for it. You can also use Tumblr, which does it for free.
You're an investor.
And yes, full disclosure. What that allows you to do is it allows you to have your blog content appear at your own URL. And that way, if you ever later on swap out your blogging platform, well, you're in control of your URLs. You own your URLs. And so you can use a different blogging platform to serve up the same content. But yes, you're going to have to serve it up under exactly the same URL. So